Deep beneath the waves of the sparkling blue ocean, all the sea creatures were buzzing with excitement. It was the day of the Great Sea Creature Race, a competition held every year to see who was the fastest swimmer in the entire sea. The coral reef was decorated with colorful seaweed banners, and the fish were all cheering for their favorite contestants. This year, the racers were a fun mix of sea creatures: Speedy the dolphin, Shelly the sea turtle, Flash the swordfish, and even Bubbles the baby octopus, who was racing for the very first time. The seahorses lined up at the starting point, ready to blow the bubbles that would signal the start of the race. "Ready, racers, that. On your marks, get set. Go!" shouted Captain Crab, and the race began. Speedy the dolphin zoomed forward, his sleek body cutting through the water like a bullet. He was known for his incredible speed, and right away, he took the lead. Behind him, Flash the swordfish wasn't far behind, his long, sharp nose slicing through the water as he dashed forward. "I'm going to win this year for sure," Flash thought, grinning to himself. But what about Shelly the sea turtle? Well, Shelly wasn't fast, but she was determined. "Slow and steady wins the race," she reminded herself as she swam along, moving steadily with each powerful stroke of her flippers. Meanwhile, Bubbles the baby octopus was having a little trouble. Her tiny legs were wiggling in every direction, and she couldn't quite keep up with the others. But Bubbles wasn't discouraged. "It's my first race. I'll just do my best," she thought with a smile. As the race continued, Speedy and Flash were neck and neck. Speedy flipped through the water with ease, but Flash was determined to take the lead. Just as Flash darted ahead, he glanced back to see where the others were. This small distraction was all it took for him to accidentally bump into a cluster of jellyfish. "Whoa!" Flash cried out, zigzagging to avoid them. But the jellyfish slowed him down just enough for Speedy to race ahead again. Further back, Shelly was still swimming at her steady pace. "I'll get there, one stroke at a time," she said, smiling. And surprisingly, as the race went on, she noticed she was catching up. Flash was still recovering from his jellyfish encounter, and Speedy was using so much energy that he was starting to slow down. And Bubbles? Well, Bubbles had discovered a little shortcut through some seaweed tunnels. She popped out ahead of the others, giggling in surprise. "I didn't think I'd be up here." As they approached the final stretch, the crowd of fish, crabs, and seahorses cheered loudly. It was anyone's race now. Speedy and Flash were still close, but Shelly's slow and steady pace had brought her closer than anyone expected. And little Bubbles, using all 8 legs, was giving it her all. With one final burst of speed, the racers neared the finish line. Speedy leaped out of the water with a graceful flip, Flash surged forward with all his might, and Shelly calmly paddled along, determined and focused. And Bubbles? She was spinning and twirling, having the time of her life. "And the winner is Shelly the sea turtle," announced Captain Crab, waving his claws in excitement. The crowd erupted in cheers as Shelly crossed the finish line first. Her steady pace and determination had paid off. Speedy and Flash weren't far behind, and even Bubbles finished with a big smile on her face. "Wow, I can't believe it," said Shelly, surprised but happy. "I guess slow and steady really does win the race." Speedy and Flash congratulated her, both impressed by her determination. "Great job, Shelly," said Speedy with a grin. "Next year, I'll be ready to race you again." Bubbles giggled. "That was so much fun."